Welcome to Why Is This Good, a podcast by the Naples Writers Workshop. I'm Christine and I'm here with John. Hey, John.
Hello.
All right, John, it's your turn. Tell us about your story.
I picked a story by Breece D'J Pancake called Hollow. So I read this book, collected Breece D'J Pancake, Stories, Fragments, Letters, and I wanted to pick I was reading it and I'm like, I'm going to pick a story out of here, but my first three choices are not available online. So I just kind of had to pick this story by default almost. I think I got to the point where I was like, all right, what is online? What can I look at? So I was like, all right, I'll do that one. That one's pretty good. I mean, they're all pretty good, but it is not the story I wanted to pick. There's a story I really wanted to talk about, but I guess the audience will never know. But I do recommend getting the book.
This is our second one by Mr. Pancake.
Yes, I couldn't pick Trilobites because we already read that one. With her fork, Sally drew lazy curves in her bean soup and shook her head. "Nah, I'm tired of living on talk. This ain't talk. What made you stay with me this long? Talk? Love? Love ain't talk. Whores talk." His hand flashed across the table, knocking her head askance, and she flushed. She got up slowly, put her plate in the sink, and walked down to the hall to the bedroom. Buddy heard her turn on the TV, but the sound died down, leaving only the whimper of the dogs. He watched his plate turn cold, grease crusting the edges. Getting bourbon for his coffee, he sat his plate on the floor for the bitch and went to the window. With lamplight shining green in their eyes, the pack circled the trailer, talking, waiting. He turned off the lamp and looked for the thing Sally stared after, but only the light gray sky and near black ghost of the road touched the hollow. In the darkness, he found his 30-30 rifle and flashlight, opened the slatted window, and poked them through. Passing over two strong-boned hounds, his beam landed on a ragged spitz and he fired into the marble lights, the shot singing through the washes and gullies. The dogs scattered into the brush beyond the road, leaving the thrashing spitz to die in the yard. Lindy paced the trailer's length to the sound of the whines, but when they stopped, she settled on the couch, her tail flapping each time Buddy moved. The shot jerked Sally from her half-sleep, but she settled back again, watching the blue TV light play against the rusty flowers of ceiling leaks as the last grains of cocaine soaked into her head. She stretched, felt afloat in an ocean of blue light rippling around her body, and relaxed. She knew she was prettier than the girls in the Thunderball Club or the girl on the TV, and lots more fun. Lots, she whispered over and over. Buddy's silhouette stood in the doorway. "They won't be back," he said. "Who?" Sally sat up, letting the sheets slide away from her breasts. "The dogs." "Oh, yeah. You can't make any money at it, Sal. Too much free stuff floating around." "Yeah? And all this money you're making's gonna keep me here?" He turned back down the hall. "Buddy," she said, and heard him stop. "Come on." As he shed his shoes, she noticed the slope in his back more than usual, but in turning to her, his chest swelled when he unbuttoned his shirt. From where he stood, the hall light mixed with the TV, flashed her eyes white and pink as she moved in the blanket wave to make room for him. He climbed in, his cold hands stroking her waist, and she felt the little tremors in his muscles. She dragged a single finger down his spine to make him shiver. "When you leavin'?" "Pretty soon," she said, pulling him closer.
Yeah, so that scene is terrible for so many reasons. When I read this story, John, first of all, I mean, these characters have a way of talking and they're talking about something that unless you know what they're doing, you're kind of struggling to keep up with like, okay, what are we doing down in this mine? What are we like?
Oh, the coal mining stuff, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, all right, I think I know what they're doing and why they're doing it. And then you get to a scene like this, and you're like, oh, finally, the domestic scene. I know what's happening here. And then he
I heard
shoots
he's
and
eating
kills a
dinner.
dog. Yeah, shoots and kills a dog out the window casually, leaves it there to die, and then has like sex with this woman that we know is about to leave him, and then she ultimately does, like literally the same night. And it was just terrible. And then you think, oh well, that's as bad as it'll get. And then you get to the end of the story, and there's this other horrific scene with animal abuse. It's not even animal abuse, it's hunting. But yeah, it was rough. I read a little, like, I was gonna try to read like a review of this afterwards because I was like, I know what I think, but I can't just keep talking about how sad it is, you know? Like, man, that's sad. That's sad. That's sad. There's gotta be another word for it. But anyway, I didn't end up finding anything like that was too in depth. I just quickly looked. But the thing that I did see described all of his stories as stories that you want to be over. Like, you want to escape. You want to be finished with this scene, but there's something about knowing that the characters within them are stuck in so many ways. You know it's going to keep going on like this for Buddy, right? We leave
Yeah.
him at a place where he's like, I'll show her, there'll be money coming in. And you just kind of know better.
Yeah, he's trying to arrange a strike to make a bunch of money, but he's deluded. Well, this story is like a portrait, is the way I took it. It's just this guy who's just trapped in this life. And it's, yeah, like you said, pretty sad.
Yeah.
But it's interesting how much happens
Oh,
in
yeah.
this tiny little thing.
And it's one day. It's over the course of one day, like maybe until the next morning.
Yeah, it's like overnight and then yeah, it's simple that way. I like that simplicity of it. You can put a lot of stuff into it. And it's not like he just like happened to pick the day that like 35 different things happen. It's just like the one main thing happened and you write about that day, but it encompasses all the things that kind of describe his existence.
Yeah, it's probably the fair assumption that even if he's not killing dogs every day, that like we're getting a true slice of life. Like this is how bleak it is for him on a regular basis. These are the kind of things he does to cope. These are his reactions to things. This is how he's gotten himself in this situation in the first place. And like just his like delusions about where it's gonna head. I think it's a really good example of like starting the story in the right spot. Because someone might be tempted to like start sooner. Oh, let's show it when the relationship was good or something. Like, no, we don't need that. Just show us when she's leaving.
Yeah.
I was trying to remember whether Trilobites was as bleak. I don't think it was.
It had its own kind of bleakness.
The same sort of like tone.
Yeah. I mean, that's one thing that I read the whole collection and he died like a couple weeks before he turned 27. So a full output of his life is like these 12 stories that are in this collection. He never had a chance to do the novel he was planning and some other stuff. And a few of those stories like this one in Trilobites got published in the Atlantic, but most of the stories are, not most, all of the stories are basically about West Virginia, living in West Virginia and like the kind of economic and otherwise depression of that existence. And there's just different characters kind of going through that. So I think there's like a big attachment to the land and the situation. Like this one is one of the few that actually mentions the coal mining. The other one,
Yeah.
they were on a farm, and I think his mom, his dad, the character's dad had passed, but his mom was planning to sell it. Some old, like somebody from high school he used to know, some girl was coming by, and they like
That's right. Yeah, they had like some like date or something in like an abandoned warehouse type
a
thing. And it
date,
was
yes.
like, I mean, it was like a hangout and you were kind of hoping, but you knew better than to think she was going to stick around for any of it.
Yeah, she like they hooked up, and then she just took off and left him there.
Yeah, that is a date. It's a nice date.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about how when you start reading a story that's like about World War II, you're filling in the blanks for the writer. You know, you can assume a lot of things about the setting and the time and place. And there's something about writing about mining. It's never in its heyday. And we have a character, Buddy, here who thinks it's going to get better. And you kind of know better, right? We know that it doesn't get better for the miners. And so there's like a certain like affect that you can just kind of fill in the blanks. Like there's like places in the country that are just past their prime. And you know, when things are set there, that you're going to get a story like this.
Well, one of the things that I was thinking about for like why I brought this story or why I brought this whole collection, I wanted to do a story out of this collection. And after reading it was, I think about that common advice to new writers about find your voice. And it's often paired with write what you know.
Yeah.
And like, he is definitely a write what you know, find your voice kind of, he did that. Like all his stories are about West Virginia and he knows West Virginia. The stuff like in Trilobites about the land and in this one about the mining and like there's little comments when they're down in there about how the rock looks and stuff. And I was reading his letters are also in this collection and he's talking about how he found this cave near where he was living and like how it's granite so it's safe. Like he's gonna like stay in the cave for a couple of weekends in the spring or something. He's like writing a letter to his parents. Oh, I found this great cave out in the hills. I'm gonna go sleep there for a couple nights. But like that's what he lived. That's what he knew. He knew the land. So like this collection especially is an exemplar of that kind of writing what you know and exploring that kind of the situation that you are familiar with and finding all the little crusty details in it.
Oh, crusty. I mean, that's a good description for this one for sure. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't even write a scene in which somebody shoots and kills a dog in this manner and make it sound authentic because it's never even crossed my mind that you would want to do that or that it would solve something and like how you pick which dog to do and how you just go on with your life afterwards. Like it would reek of like me trying to envision something. And yeah, you're right that like this is just what he lives and breathes, like this place and these sensibilities.
Even if Breece himself never shot a dog, dog. He knew guys
Yes.
that had done that, or like this character is some version of people he knew.
Yeah, so Sally leaves. I was confused the whole time why he was just gonna let her go with this guy. And then she just like says like, "Yeah, I'm gonna leave today." And then she takes his TV too. I was like, "God damn." And then like he wakes up after the bar, like he doesn't really remember what happened, but he talks about how he vaguely remembers as he's sobering up hitting a different guy who pissed him off, and it was the guy that like he had done something to the coal or whatever. And he like sees him out and he punches him, and then he kind of like is sobering up and just goes about his morning. He's like, Sally never fed me meat, but I'm gonna go hunt. And then he kills the deer, and the deer is pregnant, and then he just watches the baby die, and then then we leave him. There's something about like the way he handles this Sally situation that tells you everything you need to know about whether or not he's gonna make it, because he just lets that happen to him. I feel like he's extremely passive.
There's also the unacknowledged illness. He's spitting blood. He's
Yeah.
got something wrong
He
with him.
gets like the pain when he's like about to go to the bar or whatever. He's like, ugh, and he gets like a
Yeah.
pain in his ribs. Yeah, you're right.
But what's interesting about Sally's situation is one of the reasons I picked the scene I read was because we switched to her point of view during that.
Yes,
And her
yes.
point of view is like coked up, but
Yeah,
but it's her point of view for that, like what feels like a pivotal moment. It's not him. We're not in his thoughts. Like we're in her thoughts, kind of like, here's what I'm doing for this moment.
yeah. You didn't read the first section in that like section break, the
Yeah,
first sentence,
I didn't want to
which
read
is
too much, so.
no, which is fine. But like when I came to that, I was like, wait a second, we're cheating. Like, because everything was happening within the trailer at that point. It says Lindy smiled at Sally, wagged at the sound of Buddy's footsteps from the bedroom and down the hall. It's like, oh shit, we're not Buddy anymore. We're Sally, I guess. Or we could have been Lindy.
Yeah, I mean, those particular moments aren't like explicitly in somebody else's point of view, but they are like removed from him. They're like kind of not.
We were, when like a movie scene will do that, like we're following a main character and then all of a sudden,
Yeah,
like a director will decide we're going to overhear this secret conversation that our main character cannot and has not heard. And it's like this
yeah.
intentional decision. That's what this felt like. I was like, oh, okay, like we're going to hear the footsteps, Buddy's footsteps.
We got a camera over the shoulder. He's walking
Yeah.
up to the trailer, and then all of a sudden the camera's inside
Yes.
before he opens the door, right?
Yeah. And I'm
So
like, we're
you're
cheating,
like,
we're
oh,
cheating.
where are we?
Which is, okay, now that I'm seeing it done this way, maybe this is a good way to like explain it to people when they're like, well, some places head hop. This is a very deft way of head hopping where it's like, we haven't lost continuity with the scene. We are with Buddy at work. We're with Buddy when he goes home from work. We're with Buddy as he walks into the trailer. We're not jumping ahead or back and forth in time. We're just, like you said, the camera has switched from being over his shoulder to being in the trailer, like a second ahead of him. And maybe it's an easier way to, first of all, it's easier to spot as a reader. Sometimes like when you just head hop so blatantly and it's jarring because it's like different time, different place, character that we haven't even met yet or whatever. Yeah, maybe that's a good way to do it.
Well, there's that third person kind of way to do it where it's
Yeah.
like where the camera is pointed, what it's
Yes.
focusing on. But there's also in that same scene, it's her own internal experiences. Like we feel the rush of cocaine with her. Like that's not his experience. So we're not,
No.
and we're definitely inside of her experiences. And at the end of the story, we're in a Bobcat's experience. Like
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
watching him, waiting for him to leave with the Bobcat. I think head hopping is such a misunderstood thing. There are places where it is egregious. It's not good. Where you're like, you're breaking something here.
Yeah.
And it's true that you shouldn't do that in this particular moment, most like workshop thing. But you read really good writers, like they don't care about point of like those kinds of things because they know how to slide us in and out and get us where we need to be and what we're seeing, what we're experiencing fluidly. So it's not jarring and it's not disconcerting. And I think that's the main thing.
Yeah.
Because you could read this whole story and not even notice that. Like we're writers, so we're like, oh, gotta make note of point of view.
Yeah. Right.
But readers don't care.
No, not if it's done correctly. Yeah, if it's done well. But I think, like, I mean, you were basically saying this. It's the kind of rule that you can't break until you understand the rule. So when it's done really egregiously, it's usually by like an amateur writer who's just like, oh, no, I can do it. I just did it. See? And this is why I did it. And it's like, oh, God, you don't even understand you don't understand the first thing about like point of view, right? So it's the same way you got to learn how to write complete sentences before you're allowed to write run-ons. You have to know what a sentence is so that you know what a run-on is. You don't just get to skip ahead.
Yeah.
So you're right. And I think you're also right that like maybe the average reader is not like, it's not that they don't realize what's being done there. It's not that they don't realize they're in Sally's head, but they're not thinking to themselves, oh, was that right? They're just going with the flow because it hasn't been jarring. It's like like you said, it's been very fluid.
When I was reading through this collection, I didn't notice that. It was only when I
Yeah.
reread it, I was like, oh yeah, that's cool. I noticed the animals because that's different, right?
I only noticed this section because like it just took me a second. Yeah, it just took me a second to reorient.
But what I like about that moment, it's we're in her point of view for giving him dinner.
Just that section, yeah.
He slaps her. Her reaction to that, she takes Coke, he shoots the dog. They sleep together. He asks her, when are you leaving? Because he knows it's coming. And she's like,
Pretty
pretty
soon.
soon. Like
Tonight
that,
after you go to the bar.
that's like the pivotal moment. So you're like, whose story is this in this moment? Because why do we slip to her? It's like, it is a lot. It's his story, but it's also her story. So I think there's a lot of, in this moment, Buddy is not driving it. So it's
Yeah.
better to be in her perspective in some ways. I can see a version where you stay in Buddies because then it's more about like something else. But I think for what this story actually does, there's a reason we're in her point of view, which makes you ask the question, why are we in the Bobcat's point of view at the end?
I was like, ooh, you tell me, is there an entire Bobcat story?
There's not. I was trying to remember. I feel like he might have done that in another story, but I couldn't remember if maybe I was just remembering this one again, like switching to the animal, but I didn't know for sure.
I feel like, I don't know, sometimes I read stories like this that just feel like we said, are written by a person that knows and lives and breathes this world, these characters, where his writing of it doesn't necessarily, in my mind, like involve all this work, right? He can just write these scenes because he's seen them a million times. He knows them, he understands them. So sometimes I dismiss that for like not needing to put in work, you know what I mean? And who knows? Like sometimes I read people and I just assume because it's so good that it's talent versus hard work, that he had to edit this a million times or like made a conscious choice with like the Bobcat.
He did all reports, all the writings, like in the collection they have, there's like an introduction and a forward and an afterward and a like a
They love this guy.
but one thing they mentioned is like he was ridiculous with editing. He would go over things a million times.
Okay. Which I'm not saying that I'm saying like I have made this assumption almost to my own detriment, you know, where like if I don't get something published, I'm like, well, it's because I'm not good enough. Not like I should work harder. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, yeah, that's different. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like I interpret like success from other writers as like, you know, this X factor I can't hope to achieve. And I think that there's like some level
That's right.
to a writer like this. I'm not dismissing his work, but I would argue he starts at a talent level 10 times higher than mine. And he works really hard. That's why he's successful. That is a rare combination.
Yeah, he's got the eye. I mean, he picks the right details. He
Yes.
knows where to put the camera, the figurative camera, all this stuff. Yeah.
And the hard work in a lot of senses is like they're so good just naturally that when they reread their own shit, they're like, this is garbage. I gotta fix it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like work. It's more like I'm better than I don't know. It's anyway. Point being that like when I read like a section like that, I'm like, I don't know. Maybe it's just like this natural decision that they made. And okay, now you're telling me otherwise, which I accept and approve. But there's something still in this like genre of storytelling in this like West Virginia, right? Like where like the animals are also struggling, and it feels like a natural inclusion to just be like, this cat has to scavenge, right? This is like an apex predator, this bobcat. He wants to be hunting and killing things, but he hasn't been able to. So he's gonna like watch this man kill this deer and he's gonna eat the guts, right? Bobcats don't fell deer, but they are like at the top of their food chain. This cat is struggling to get by. Then we got these dogs like surrounding his trailer. Maybe they just want to like get with Lindy, right? She's the hottest hound on the block, who knows? Or else like they're starving too. They're literally starving and they know that there's a person in there cooking food and a dog that's taken care of. And the deer that has the baby, and there's just like no second thought for, oh, it sucks that that baby won't come into the world. It's like, no, man, it's kill or get killed. It's dog eat dog. Like this is like a place where not even like the landscape and the flora and fauna are successful, right? Like it's times are tough for everyone. And I think it's like winter in the morning here, at least in this one scene where it's like cold.
It's very much about like his stories in general. And this one too is about the land that they're living in, from the coal mine and how they're digging into the stone and like getting the coal out to where they live. It's called hollow, right? They live in a hollow. They talk about the ridges. They talk about his family's association with the land around it
Yeah.
and everything. And then these animals, the dogs, he kills one of the dogs, the deer he kills who's pregnant, and then the bobcat who's watching him. So you can thematically, if you will, about the story ask like, how does he attach to the land? How does his character interact with the natural world around him? And it's like, it's very agonistic. It's very like he's not connected to it really. He's like destroying it, right? He's destroying this deer. He's kind of like, they talk about what he wants to do if he calls a strike and tries to to fund the excavation themselves, they're going to wreck the property and then it's going to be useless. But he's like, but I want to do that. And so he's not really attached to the land in the way that he ought to be, if you want to think of a moral stance the story might take. So that's like part of it in just those really subtle ways.
Well, that's I think why, like when I was talking about how like there's just a certain tone to all these stories about mining, it's never told in the heyday. And I think there was a time and a place where like maybe his family or generations before, or just like in general in America, like where mining didn't feel like we were like abusing the land, and where in the meantime, like the place where you lived was thriving. People were thriving economically, animals were doing fine. It was a tough place, but that defined you as a person. It wasn't beating you down, you know, like it was toughening you up. Like you managed to survive in this place that was hard to survive in, but you were thriving, right? You weren't just getting by. And now it's like Buddy is part of a group of people that is like squeezing the last drops out of this place. And so it's like, I don't know that he was ever given the opportunity to like treat any of it better, you know? Like he probably doesn't know any better. This is dog eat dog. And like you said, it's like maybe he should be treating like, you know, they're using the land. They're just like using the deer. You could probably argue he's like using Sally and she's using him. But like it's hard to fault any of these people because it doesn't seem like they can just go get a freelance writing job and sit on their ass and like order frozen food. So that's why these stories are sad. That's I think why that the guy that I briefly read online was like, they're the kind of stories you want to finish reading because you just know there's no hope for these people. Like Mr. Pancake, he's just capturing what this is like. Like what were the rest of the stories? Were they all kind of bleak like this?
Yeah, basically. It's
Yeah.
all similar. I mean, that's why my takeaway for this is all about voice.
Okay.
Because the advice is find your voice. And I've always thought voice is it's a dumb metaphor because in writing, voice is changeable.
Sure.
Style is changeable. But I think what people mean by voice is something different than like
Yeah.
style. And we don't know how to define it. So we call it style. But what voice is actually, it's more like your perspective. It's like
Right.
what you choose to write about, how you see things. So your topics, what you highlight about those topics, the details you notice. So in that respect, he has a really distinct voice about where he grew up, about West Virginia, and he knows that place. And so I attached it earlier to writing what you know, like the voice comes from what he knows.
Right.
So the answer to the question is like most of these are in that voice. He discovered something to write about, and he was definitely pursuing that. I wonder, because my other part of that is in that same conversation about finding your voice as a writer. I don't like giving that advice. I think it's a good idea to, if you're going to find something to write about, to find something you know about, so then you know the details that really bring it to life.
Okay.
And that helps elevate your writing because it helps make your writing about something. It like makes it more interesting because you really know what you're doing, what you're saying, what you're portraying. But I think it's a weakness amongst writers if you only have one voice, if there's only one thing you can write about. So I've often said, don't worry about finding a voice because you should be able to change your voice by the story. Like you have one voice for this story, one voice for that story. So the fact that he died so young and only has these 12 stories, which share a voice, I do wonder if he would have evolved past that. Maybe not past it, like he's not going to change who he is, but like if his perspective, if his characters, his depictions would have grown and changed.
Oh man, that's hard to think about.
Yeah, I mean, and unfortunately he died, so there's no way to know.
And just because like there are people like this who 12 stories, maybe it would have been a fraction of his entire body of work.
He was a couple weeks before he turned 27.
Yeah, so he's a little baby.
Yeah.
And so good. What a jerk. I don't know. I think some people with his characters are as trapped as they are. Some people are confined or like preoccupied with like a certain type of thing that they write about. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, whatever a writer wants to do, but I'm thinking for like, if I want to
Yeah.
take something from this as for myself,
Sure.
I don't want to trap myself into a particular thing.
I am willing to trap myself. I'll do it if it means
If you
that
get like
if
thousands
I
and thousands of dollars every time.
Oh yeah, and if I can be the guy that is like exclusively published in the Atlantic at the ripe age of 25, like yeah, I'll take it.
In one of his letters, he says the Atlantic is the best. They're the best ones doing it. So like J.D. Salinger was obsessed with getting in the New Yorker.
Yeah.
Until he finally did. Pancake was constantly wishing he'd get into the Atlantic, so he got to do that. And they paid pretty well.
Yeah, back then. I'm sure they pay about the same as what they were paying then. My takeaway is one that I came up with on the fly when we first started talking about this. But like you said, like so much is crammed into this. And I do think this is a really good example of like starting the story at the right spot. Because like you said, when you described it as like, you didn't call it a slice of life. I forget the wording that you use, like
Portrait. I might have used the word portrait.
Yeah, this is like, a day in the life of Buddy. And all of these things might be pressing and of the moment, but a year out or 2 years before, you'd have a very similar story about a guy like Buddy, whether or not Sally left him that day, right? And you'd be capturing the same sorts of things. So there's that. But I also think that, so maybe this is a character where it doesn't matter where you start the story, you can still like manage to capture it. But I think this is a good example of just start right when shit's going down. Maybe this is the climax of Buddy's life. Who knows? Like maybe we have reached a point where this is a turning point for him, right? His girlfriend leaves him and things are really bad at work and he's about to do something terrible. Maybe this is like a turning point or a climax. We kind of know better. But assuming that it is, like we've started right when it happens. We don't need to like even see it play through because he has, as a character, has been so well captured that we're starting at the exact right moment. I think sometimes amateur writers, I'm guilty of this too, will start a story like a little sooner than the climax, which is fine. So that's how stories start. But like maybe we start it too soon because we think that like the only way to like portray this character is to show a reader in real time what they've been through. Instead of just like presenting a character that we can safely assume has been hardened by this landscape, this upbringing, this lifestyle, right? We don't need to like see Buddy struggle for 35 years before he's in the mine doing this shit, you know?
That's right.
We get it. We know who this character is because Mr. Pancake knows who he is. He knows who he is. He knows what he's gone through. And so he can start this story wherever he wants. And doesn't it make for a much more exciting story to like have this guy at work talking shit about his girlfriend and then she literally leaves him in the next page? Like how satisfying.
Yeah.
And then we get to see like the immediate aftermath. He didn't make us wait for anything. And to the point of that writer that I read online, we also are more than happy to dip out because I don't want to see him kill anything else. And I kind of know that it doesn't get better from here, you know?
That's I was going to say is about the ending is like we don't need to see how badly his attempts to start a strike go because we know it's not a good idea. Like he's set it up as like this is a bad idea. He's going to push for it and it is a bad idea. It's going to wreck things. And so we're left with that. He's got bad ideas.
This story is called Buddy and His Bad Idea. Buddy gets another bad idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm probably just on a kick, but when you sent this over, I was like, wow. I was like, this is all like I said, it all like reeks of the same kind of like stuckness and sadness. And isn't that ripe for like storytelling? It makes me want to read the rest of that collection.
It's good. It's really good. I mean, he is so good. And I wish we could have done the other story that I was going to pick, but this is a great story too.
All right. Thanks, guys.
If you enjoyed this episode, consider joining our Patreon. Your support helps us keep the show running. Find out more at patreon.com/whyisthisgoodpodcast. And for industry news, writing tips, and great short fiction, join our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Naples Writers Workshop. You can also subscribe to our monthly newsletter at napleswritersworkshop.com.